Yes, dear students, today's topic is bone. In the last session, we were discussing the cartilage. Now we'll be discussing bone. Clear, students? Study of bone is called as osteology. Study of bone, osteology. Anything osteo means it's related to the bone. That's why bone is also called as osseous tissue. Osseous tissue. Bone is also called as osseous tissue. Clear, students? Study of bone is called as osteology. Anything osteo means bone. The unit of bone is osteon. Clear? The bone cells are called as osteocytes, osteoblasts, osteoclasts. Anything bone means that should be an osteo. Clear, students? So this is a bone tissue or osseous tissue. Bone tissue or osseous tissue. The tissue contains the cells and the matrix. The tissue contains the cells and the matrix. Here, extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix. So first of all, let's discuss what are the cells present in the bone. That is bone cells. Here called as the bone cells. There are three types of bone cells are there, students. Clear? The first one is called as the osteoblasts. Osteoblasts. In the previous session, we have discussed the chondroblast. What is chondroblast? The immature but active cells of the cartilage. In the same way, here also osteoblast means the immature but active cells of bone. Here blast means the development. If it is formed completely, that is called as an osteocyte. Just like chondroblast, chondrocytes. The same way here osteoblasts, immature. They are not matured yet and they are the active cells of the bone. Why? Because they secrete the osteoblasts secrete the bone matrix. The bone matrix, I told you here, extracellular matrix is there which contains the collagen fibers. This osteoblast secretes the bone matrix. And once the matrix is formed, for example, this is a rough structure of the bone here. This is a tear structure. And here contains a matrix, bone matrix. And here contains a vacuolar structure. And here is the osteocyte. I have drawn this one separately. Okay, here for example is a lacuna. This is the lacuna. That is, this one is being drawn here. Clear? So this one is a lacuna, is a vacuole-like structure. Lacuna is a vacuole-like structure. What is a vacuole? Vacuole means the empty space. So this lacuna is a vacuole or empty space into which the bone cell is present. Here is a bone cell and here is a nucleus. So this is a lacuna, this is a bone cell. Here which bone cell? Here called as the osteocyte. Osteocyte. So the osteoblasts are the immature but active cells of the bone which secretes the bone matrix. Once the bone matrix is formed, the lacunae are also formed. The lacunae are the vacuole empty space like structures into which the bone cell called as osteocyte. That is, osteoblast gets matured. Whereas the osteoblasts are the immature cells, they get matured into the osteocytes. Once the osteocyte is formed, they are entrapped inside the lacuna. See here, this is a lacuna, this is a osteocyte. Here is a nucleus of the osteocyte. Once the matrix is formed, what happens? The osteoblasts are developed into the osteocytes and get entrapped here. Now in the cartilage, I told you that, in the previous session, I told you that the cartilage matrix also contains the which one? The lacunae are there. Lacuna is singular, lacunae is a plural. So the lacuna contains the 1 to 4 chondrocytes are there. 1 to 4 chondrocytes. Whereas the lacuna of the osteoblast, this one, the bone, the lacuna of the bone contains only one bone cell here called as the osteocyte. Whereas in the case of cartilage, the lacuna contains 1 to 4 chondrocytes. In the case of this lacuna of the bone, it contains only one osteocyte. That's the difference here. Clear, students? Whereas here this osteocyte, what is osteocyte? The osteocyte is nothing but, here I am writing, osteocyte is a fully formed cell. What is a fully formed cell, students? It is a mature cell. Fully formed cell means a mature cell but inactive cell. Inactive bone cell. Whereas osteoblast is a immature but active cell. Osteocyte is a mature but inactive cell and get entrapped inside the lacuna. Clear, students, all of you? So first type of cell is osteoblast. The second type of bone cell is the osteocyte. So we here we will be discussing which one? Bone cells. The first one is the osteoblast. The second one is the osteocyte. The third one. Now let's discuss the crucial one, and that's called as osteoclast. Osteoclast. Here osteoclasts are the third type of bone cells. This forms the mononuclear phagocytic system. Mononuclear phagocytic system. Here phagocyte is a cell which can engulf and kill the bacteria by phagocytosis. That's called as a phagocyte. Mononuclear means it contains only a single cell, as different from the polymorphonuclear phagocytic system, that's called as a neutrophils. Clear, students? So here osteoclasts. What happens? Some of the WBC here, they get, that is monocyte. Which type of WBC? Monocytes. They go to the liver cells and called as a Kupffer cells, synovial joints, synovial cells. Like this, they come to the connective tissue histiocytes. In the same way, they come to the bone and forms the osteoclasts. When they come, what happens? These many monocytes. For example, this is a monocyte, here is a monocyte, here is a monocyte, or here is a monocyte. That is, more than two monocytes, they get clubbed, they get joined to form a single osteoclast. This is an osteoclast now. So osteoclast is a combination of many monocytes, preferably 5 monocytes. Many number of monocytes, they join to form a single cell, that's called as an osteoclast. Osteoclast. Clear, students? So osteoclasts form the mononuclear phagocytic system. It's nothing but a monocyte present in the bone. Okay, that's called as osteoclast. These monocytes, they contain a nucleus. Entire one is called as which one? Osteoclast. That is, osteoclast is a many nucleated cell. That is, many nuclei are there here. That is called as a multinucleate condition is there. Many nucleate means here the multinucleate condition is present in the osteoclast. It forms a mononuclear phagocytic system. Okay, and it is a combination of many monocytes, a very larger cell, and that's why, because it contains many nuclei there, it's called as a mononucleate condition is present in the osteoclast. Now, what is the significance of this osteoclast? When they come to the bone, example is a rough structure of the bone. When come to the bone, they lie in the depressions of the bone. Since, for example, these are the depressions of the bone, they lie in the depressions of the bone. Here is osteoclast, for example. They lie like this. And, for example, here, blood. This is a representation of the blood. The blood contains the calcium ions. The bone also contains the calcium ions. Isn't it? The blood contains calcium ions. The bone also contains the calcium ions, calcium salts. There should be the balance, equilibrium between the calcium levels of the bone and the blood. That's called as calcium homeostasis must be maintained. For example, if the blood calcium level is decreasing, then the parathyroid gland present near the thyroid gland, isn't it? Thyroid gland is there here, the pharyngeal region here, in this neck region. And this parathyroid gland releases a very important hormone called as parathormone. When the parathormone is released through the blood, it is going to which one? Bone. Then the which cells are activated now? The bone cells called as the osteoclasts are activated. Whereas these osteoclasts are present in the depressions of the bone, I told you, isn't it? So when the osteoclasts are activated, what happens? This osteoclast releases a very important hormone called as acid phosphatase. Osteoclast releases a very important hormone called as acid phosphatase and other enzymes. What's the function of this acid phosphatase and host of other enzymes? They will dissolve the calcium levels of the bone and other minerals of the bone. They dissolve the different minerals of the bone. Whereas osteoblast, I told you, it not only forms the matrix of the bone, but also forms the minerals. Here it forms the minerals of the bone. That's why it is a bone forming tissue, because it forms not only the extracellular matrix, but also the mineralization of bone is the main duty, the function of the osteoblasts. That's why osteoblasts are the bone forming cells. Whereas you take osteoclasts, they destroy the bone. What for they destroy the bone? So as to release the calcium salts into the blood. That's why they are called as the bone breakers, breakers of the bone. And this is called as the demineralization of the bone. Demineralization of bone, which is nothing but resorption of the bone. Resorption of the bone. So these two are exactly opposite. Osteoblasts, they add the mineral content to the bone. That's why there is a bone forming cell. Whereas osteoclasts, they destroy the bone so as to release the calcium salts and other minerals into the blood. What for they do here? Because the blood is decreasing level of the calcium ions. That's why what is released here? The parathyroid gland releases a very important hormone called as a parathormone. Through the blood, the parathormone is going to which one? These osteoclasts, so that osteoclasts are activated. With osteoclasts are activated, the osteoclast releases the hormone called as acid phosphatase and a host of other enzymes, so that these acid phosphatase and other enzymes, they break the bone, they dissolve the bone. So that what is released here? Calcium ions and other minerals are added to the blood by destroying this bone. That is why it's called as a demineralization of the bone. What is the demineralization of the bone? The removal of the minerals from the bone is called as the demineralization of the bone. Whereas adding of the minerals to the bone is called as the here mineralization of the bone. And that's a duty function of the osteoblast. Whereas opposite is one, which one? Osteoclasts, they remove the minerals. That's why it's called as a demineralization of the bone, which is nothing but resorption of the bone. In this way, the calcium ions are added to the blood. This is a hypercalcemic factor. That is addition of the calcium to the blood is called as hypercalcemic factor. What is that? Parathormone. Because, and they are activating the osteoclasts. So this is the first function of this one. The second function, that is for, what is the first function, students? One is the demineralization of the bone or resorption of the bone. Okay, next one is the phagocytic system. Just now I told you that it forms a phagocytic system. Because it's nothing but a monocyte. It's a combination of different monocytes. They engulf and kill the bacteria by phagocytosis. That's what I say. Forms a part of the mononuclear phagocytic system. Along with the Kupffer cells of the liver, synovial cells of the joints, microglia of the nervous tissue, all these forms a mononuclear phagocytic system. A part of this mononuclear phagocytic system is the osteoclast. So first function is the demineralization of the bone or resorption of the bone. The second function is the phagocytic system. It engulf and kill the bacteria present in the bone. That's the second function of the osteoclast. So overall, what's the bottom line here? Osteoblasts are adding the mineral content to the bone. That is why mineralization of the bone, and they not only add the minerals of the bone, but also add the extracellular matrix in the form of collagen fibers to the bone. Whereas the osteoclasts are doing the exactly opposite one. That is, they are breaking the bone so as to dissolve the minerals into the blood. So exactly the opposite role is done here. So what is the next one? Osteoclast, I told you. Osteocyte, I told you. Osteocyte. What is a cyte here? A fully formed cell is called as a cyte. It's a mature one, but an inactive cell. It is getting entrapped inside the lacuna. This is a bone forming cell here. This is a bone cell called as osteocyte. This is a nucleus, and this one is a lacuna, vacuole-like structure. Now, what's the structure of this one? Let's discuss. What is the structure of the osteocyte? What is the structure of the osteocyte? Let's discuss now. So osteocyte structure, osteocyte. That is this one which is entrapped inside the lacuna. I'm drawing here. Each lacuna contains only one osteocyte. So here is a irregular shape is there, just like an amoeba. There is no regular shape is there here. That is a osteocyte, and it contains the cytoplasmic processes. The cytoplasm extends here like this here, and it forms into the osteocyte here like this. So these are the cytoplasmic processes or protoplasmic processes. They divides and redivides like this. Divides here, redivides. All these are the extensions here called as the cytoplasmic processes. So like this is a osteocyte. This is the nucleus. This is the osteocyte, and these are the protoplasmic processes, also called as here cytoplasmic processes. Cytoplasmic processes. So how is that? This one is like a neuron, isn't it? Cyton. This one is like a cyton. This one is like a dendrite, isn't it? So don't confuse, it's not a neuron, it's a osteocyte. It's an examination question number 1 important. Osteocyte is a mature but inactive cell, gets entrapped inside the lacuna, contains a nucleus, amoeboid in shape or irregular in shape, contains the cytoplasmic processes. These are the cytoplasmic processes, also called as here protoplasmic processes. Clear, students? So till now we have been discussing the osteoblasts, followed by osteocytes, followed by osteoclasts. And this is the structure of the osteocyte. So I told you that the osseous tissue bone contains the bone cells. This one is finished now. Now let's discuss the extracellular matrix. What is extracellular matrix? The fluid substance present between the intercellular spaces or extracellular spaces is called as the extracellular matrix. What is the composition of this extracellular matrix? Let's discuss now. So extracellular matrix. Matrix means the fluid substance present between the cells is called as extracellular matrix. The bone has what is the composition of this extracellular matrix? Bone composition, let's discuss now. It contains organic substance and inorganic substance is there. What's the organic substance? Let's discuss first of all. Organic substance. The organic substance is in the form of collagen fibers. Collagen fibers. I told you that these collagen fibers are formed by which one? Osteoblast, which are the immature but active cells. They form the collagen fibers, which forms the organic substance. How much of organic substance is there? Roughly around 35% of organic substance is there in the extracellular matrix of the bone. In the form of which one? Collagen fibers. And these collagen fibers are formed by which one? Osteoblasts. Osteoblasts. I told you just now, isn't it? Next one is the inorganic substance. Inorganic substance. The inorganic substance is in the form of, first of all, this inorganic substance. How much is organic substance? 35%. And what is the inorganic substance? 65%. 65% is the inorganic substance. If you take this one as 100% inorganic substance, out of which 80% is formed by the calcium phosphate. Calcium phosphate. So if you take this inorganic substance as 100%, 80% is which one? The calcium phosphate. The calcium phosphate is in the form of hydroxyapatite crystals. Hydroxyapatite crystals. So next one is, so this is the first one. The second one is magnesium phosphate. Magnesium phosphate. And third one is calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate, CaCO3. So the inorganic substance, the main content is a calcium phosphate, which is forming how much? 80%. 80% of inorganic substance is formed by the calcium phosphate alone, which is in the form of hydroxyapatite crystals. Whereas this one is adding only 10%. Magnesium phosphate is there, and this one is 10%. So 80% calcium phosphate, 10% magnesium phosphate, and 10% calcium carbonate, totally making 100% of the inorganic substance. Okay, this inorganic substance adds how much of matrix? 65% of the bone matrix, whereas organic substance adds how much? 35% of the bone matrix. The organic substance is in the form of collagen fibers, which are formed by the osteoblasts here. So this is the composition of the bone. Till now we have been discussing the osseous tissue. First of all, cells we have discussed. Next one is the extracellular matrix. Clear, students? So now let's discuss the types of the bones. What are the different types of the bones? Now the topic is types of the bone. Basing on mode of formation or manner of formation. What is by mode? Manner. What's a manner? How they are formed. The formation of bone is called as osteogenesis. Osteogenesis. Also called as ossification. The process of bone formation is called as osteogenesis, also called as ossification. Their form, how they are formed, what is a manner? Basing on the mode or manner of formation, there are chiefly 4 different types of bones. What are these? Let's discuss now. So let's remember here, what is that? Osteogenesis or ossification. The process of bone formation is called as ossification or osteogenesis. So basing on this one, the first type is called as cartilaginous bones. Cartilaginous bones. The cartilaginous bones are also called as the endochondral bones. Endochondral. See here, chondro means cartilage. Which type of cartilage here? Hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage. So during the bone formation, that is ossification, if they are associated with the hyaline cartilage, which is a commonest form of cartilage, that's called as a cartilaginous bones. So most of the bones of the human body are which type? Cartilaginous bones, because they are formed during the ossification with the hyaline cartilage. They are also called as the endochondral bones. Chondro means cartilage. Clear, students? Next one is the investing bones. So cartilaginous bones examples I did not discuss, isn't it? Example, vertebrae. of the vertebral column, and also limb bones. So these are the common examples of the cartilaginous bones because they are formed in association with the hyaline cartilage. Hence we can say that the cartilaginous bones are the most commonest form of bones in the human body. Next one is the investing bones. Investing bones, ossification with the embryonic mesenchyme. Embryonic mesenchyme. That is, embryonic connective tissue is the embryonic mesenchyme. When it is done with ossification with the embryonic mesenchyme, they are called as investing bones. Example, most of the bones of cranium. What is the cranium? The brain box is called as cranium, isn't it? Frontal, parietal, temporal, etc. They are called as cranial bones. So most of the bones of cranium, they are formed by the ossification with the embryonic mesenchyme. Such a bone is called as the investing bone. Next one is the third type is a sesamoid bone. Sesamoid bone. Ossification with tendon. During bone formation, if they are associated with ossification with the tendon, that's called as a sesamoid bone. What is a tendon? Tendon means when the bone is connected to a muscle, that's called as a tendon. So when the ossification is the tendon is there, that's called as a sesamoid bone. Important point. So it is done with the ossification of the tendon. Examples, patella and pisiform bone. What is patella? Here kneecap bone is called as patella, kneecap bone, and pisiform bone, wrist bone. Wrist bone is called as a pisiform bone. Both of the examples, very good examples of the ossification of the tendon. Such a bone is called as a sesamoid bone. Clear, students? And the next one is visceral bone. Visceral bone. The ossification with the soft tissue, any soft tissue. During the formation of bone, if it is ossified with the soft tissue, any soft tissue, such a bone is called as the visceral bone. Clear, students? What is an example? Example is os cordis. Os cordis and os penis. This os cordis is present in the heart of the ruminants, heart of the cattle. Ruminants means cattle. Heart of the ruminants. That is cattle. Is an example of this ruminant. Next one is os penis. Present in the glans penis. Present in the glans penis of the rodents. Means rats, mouse, all these things, mice, all these are the examples of the rodents. Rats, mice, etc. And also, they are also present in the penis of the bats and other carnivores. So that is ossification with the soft tissue is called as a visceral bone. And examples are os cordis present in the heart of the ruminants, example cattle, and os penis present in the glans penis of the rodents and the bats and other carnivores. So these are the 4 examples of the bones. Here different types of the bones based on the mode of formation, also called as a manner of formation. The first one is called as cartilaginous bones, investing bones, sesamoid bones, and visceral bones. Clear, students? Next one is basing on size and shape. Basing on size and shape. First one is a mode of formation, manner of formation. This is the second type. What is the second type? Criteria basing on the size. What is the size and what is the shape of the bone? There are different types of bones out there. First one, let's discuss about the long bones. That is, as the name indicates, is very longer in size. Example, femur, humerus, etc. Femur is the thigh bone, which is the longest bone of the human body, femur bone or thigh bone. Thigh bone. Next one is humerus. That is the forelimb bone is called as the humerus, isn't it? So these are the examples of the long bone. What is a long bone? Let's discuss the structure now. Okay. So this is the structure of the long bone. This is the raised surface called as epiphysis. Epiphysis. Here called as a metaphysis. This is a metaphysis. Here this one is again the epiphysis. Epiphysis. Again here this is the metaphysis. So here epiphysis, what is that? Here raised surface is there, isn't it? Expanded surface is there here. So see here the expanded surface is there now. This expanded surface of the long bone is called as the epiphysis. Okay, and here this one is the metaphysis. This one again here expanded surface epiphysis, and slightly here near to this one there is a metaphysis there. So see here between the metaphysis of two there is a bone is there. This part is there, isn't it? So this part is called as from here to here. See here, from here to here again. This is called as the diaphysis. Diaphysis of the long bone. This is the diaphysis here. So epiphysis, metaphysis, diaphysis. That's a sequence. Again epiphysis, metaphysis, diaphysis. So why this called as metaphysis? Meta means which one? Between. Meta means in between. So this is present. The metaphysis is present between the epiphysis and diaphysis. So here also metaphysis is present between the epiphysis and diaphysis. That's why it's called as a metaphysis. Meta means here in between. So this is the structure of the long bone. Now get back to the details here now. This is called as the articular surface. Articular surface of the long bone. Here again this is called as articular surface of the long bone. Articular surface. Now, which cartilage is present at the articular surface? In the previous session, I told you that is articular surface contains a hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is present in the articular surface. Important point. Hyaline cartilage. But what is the specialty of this hyaline cartilage? Actually, the hyaline cartilage contains the perichondrium is there. But here, this example of hyaline cartilage, that is articular cartilage, does not have this pericardium. Why? Because perichondrium. Why? Because it is an articular surface. What is articular surface? Articulation. What is an articulation? It is a connection. That is here, another bone is connected at the joint. See, for example, here is a bone. Here is a bone. Here is another bone. These two are the articular surface. This is an articular surface. This is another articular surface. And here is a joint present here. You see here, this is a joint. The red marking is a joint. And here, which cartilage is there here? The hyaline cartilage is there. Why? Because the articular surface is there. Wherever the articular surface, two joints are there, it contains the articular surface. Articular surface contains which joint? Hyaline cartilage is there. You're following, students? So this is the articular surface which contains the hyaline cartilage, but it does not have the which one? The perichondrium is absent. The only example of hyaline cartilage where the perichondrium is absent, that's called as the articular surface of these free bones here. Clear, students? So here is the epiphysis, metaphysis, diaphysis, again epiphysis, metaphysis, diaphysis. This is the structure of the long bone. Now this is the internal structure. This is the external structure. This is the internal structure of the long bone. See here, the outer one, the outer fibrous irregular connective tissue sheath. What is this called as the periosteum? Periosteum. I told you that the outer fibrous dense irregular connective tissue of the cartilage is called as the perichondrium. I told you. Of the heart is called as pericardium. The same way, the outer fibrous irregular connective tissue sheath of the bone is called as which one? The periosteum. Osteo, I told you that anything related to the bone is called as the osteo, isn't it? So periosteum is covering the bone. Periosteum is covering the bone. Inner to this periosteum, what is present? Endosteum is present. What is present? Endosteum. This is the endo. Endo means inside. Peri means outside. So periosteum. This one is a periosteum. Inner one. This membrane is there. That is called as which one? Endosteum. Now, what is this one here called as? Inside this one. See here. This one is a marrow cavity here. Whichever is seen here. I am drawing with a green sketch here. Arrow marking here. This one's is a marrow cavity. What is which cavity? Marrow cavity here. This one is a marrow cavity. The marrow cavity contains which one? Bone marrow. Bone marrow. The myeloid tissue is there. Which bone marrow is this one? Yellow bone marrow. Which bone marrow? Yellow bone marrow. Yellow bone marrow. The yellow bone marrow stores the fat. It stores fat. So this one is the yellow bone marrow, which stores the fat. So what's the sequence? Tell me all of you students. This is the articular surface which contains the hyaline cartilage, which is free of perichondrium. Below this one is the epiphysis. This raised expanded surface is called as epiphysis. Below this one is a metaphysis. Below this one is a here what is present? Diaphysis is there. And here again epiphysis, metaphysis, diaphysis. This is the structure of the inner bone. This is the structure of the outer bone. Clear? So this is called as a periosteum. What is periosteum? The dense fibrous irregular connective tissue sheath of the bone is called as periosteum. Inner to this one, the membrane is called as endosteum. Inner to this endosteum, what is present? The marrow cavity is there. Empty space is there. This is a marrow cavity called as here bone marrow cavity. The bone marrow cavity is filled with which one here? Yellow bone marrow, which stores the fat. Which stores the fat here. Clear, students? This is very soft in nature. See here, up to here, up to epiphysis and metaphysis. Up to epiphysis and metaphysis, which is very soft. When you do like this, chicken, leg piece, for example, is very soft, isn't it? So this is the epiphysis and metaphysis, very spongy here. That's why it's called as a spongy bone. Spongy bone. Where spongy is there, it's not compact. That is, spongy bone is covering which one? The first part is the epiphysis, the second part is the metaphysis. Here also, same thing here. Spongy bone here, spongy bone. Epiphysis, metaphysis. So here, diaphysis is there. This diaphysis is very compact. Diaphysis is very compact, very hard. Why the bone is very hard? Because the matrix is very hard. And that's why the bone is compact, very hard, solid, rigid. Whereas the cartilage is very, okay, it's hard. Cartilage is also hard, but that is pliable. A little bit of flexibility is there for the cartilage. But this bone is non-pliable, non-flexible. Non-pliable means no flexibility is there. No flexibility is there. So how can you describe the bone? It's a hard one, it's a solid one, it's a rigid one, and it is a non-flexible one. That is called as a non-pliable one. Whereas the cartilage is a pliable one. A little bit of flexibility is there for the cartilage, but there is no flexibility for the case of the which one? The bone. The bone does not have any flexibility is there because the matrix is non-pliable. Clear, students? It contains a dense lamellae out there here. This is a structure here. So this is a spongy part of the bone which is corresponding to the epiphysis and metaphysis, and this is the diaphysis. Here diaphysis is corresponding to which bone? Compact bone. Compact bone. And this one inside contains which one? The marrow cavity is there. The marrow cavity contains the yellow bone marrow. The yellow bone marrow stores the fat. Merely stores the fat here. So this is the structure of the long bone. So I told you that this is the expanded surface is called as epiphysis, and here is the metaphysis there. For example, I am drawing here again a rough diagram. So this is the epiphysis, and what is this one? Metaphysis. The metaphysis contains the epiphyseal plates. The epiphyseal plates are there. These are the, for example, epiphyseal plates are there. The epiphyseal plates are made of hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage. The epiphyseal plates are responsible for the elongation of the bone. Elongation of the bone. If the bone is growing, it's because of the elongation of the epiphyseal plates. When there is an elongation, what happens? The bone is now growing here like this. When the bone is growing, the child is growing. The bachi, isn't it? Here is growing here. The child is growing. Is why? Because because of the elongation of the bone. Why there is an elongation of the bone? Because the epiphyseal plates are stimulated so that there is an elongation of the bone. And the epiphyseal plates are made of which cartilage? Hyaline cartilage. And only to a certain extent, for example, to 19 or 20 years, upon which what happens? This elongation of the bone is stopped. Why? Because there is a line forming is there, called as a epiphyseal line. See here, for example, here in the case of this metaphysis, a line is formed here. This line is called as the bony epiphyseal line. What is this called as a bony epiphyseal line? Epiphyseal line. Once the line is formed, there is no further elongation of the bone. Before the line is formed, what happens? The epiphyseal plates present in the metaphysis are stimulated so that there is a elongation of the bone. When there is an elongation of the bone, the child is growing. But after reaching certain age, for example 19 or 20 years, what happens? The bony epiphyseal line is formed here. Once a line is formed, there is no further elongation of the bone. They stop. That is why the child stops growing. Clear, students? That's a long bone. That's the story of the long bone. Now let's discuss the short bones. Short bones. The short bones are also, their length and breadth are almost equal in size. Okay, their length and breadth are almost equal in size. For example, carpals means wrist bones, present here, wrist bones, and tarsals, ankle bones, ankle bones. Examples of the short bones, long bones, example femur, humerus, etc. Short bones, carpals, wrist bones, tarsals, ankle bones. Next one is irregular bones. Irregular bones, basing on the shape. As the name indicates, there is no regularity here. There is no regular shape, and therefore as irregular bones. Example, vertebral bones, vertebrae. Vertebrae. Next one is flat bones. Flat bones. They are flat and plate-like structures. Flat and plate-like structures. Plate-like structures. And that's why they are called as flat bones. Example, cranial bones. Cranium. Bones of the cranium, that is brain box, are the examples of the flat bones. So, long bones, short bones, irregular bones, and flat bones, basing on the size and shape. That is the second criteria. Next one is basing on the internal structure. Basing on the internal structure. There are two types out there. What are these? Let's discuss now. Basing on internal structure of the bone, there are two types out there. One is called as a compact bone, and other is the spongy bone. Compact bone and spongy bone. What is compact? Very hard, very tough, very solid. See here, I told you just now that compact bone is corresponding to which one? The diaphysis, which is also called as shaft. Shaft. Compact bone, which is corresponding to the diaphysis. The compact bone is also called as the shaft, which is very compact, very tough, very solid. The human beings can't break this one. That's why I say compactness is there, formed by the dense lamellae. That's why it's very compact here. So this is corresponding to which one? Diaphysis. Diaphysis. And this one contains the yellow bone marrow. Marrow cavity is there, and the marrow cavity contains the bone marrow, which is the yellow bone marrow. And yellow bone marrow stores the fat. Yellow bone marrow stores the fat. That's called as the compact bone. Next one is a spongy bone. As the name indicates, it's spongy here. What is a spongy bone? I told you it is corresponding to two bones. What is two parts? What is that? One is a epiphysis, other is a diaphysis. This part is called as a spongy bone. I told you, isn't it? So this one is corresponding to the epiphysis, and other is the metaphysis. Because it is spongy, it's not compact. That's why it's called as the spongy bone. So here also spongy bone is there. Here following students, all of you. So epiphysis and metaphysis here. And you take, for example, this is the structure here. Spongy bone, epiphysis. And here is a metaphysis, called as here spongy bone. And here epiphyseal plates are there, but we are not bothered here. And this contains the dense lamellae are there here. Lamellae. This forms into the trabeculae. This forms a lamellae. This forms another trabeculae. For example, all these are the trabeculae. So 1, 2, like this, many trabeculae are there here. Between the trabeculae, so see here, this is the, what is this one? Spongy bone, corresponding to the epiphysis and metaphysis, and contains the lamellae here. These are the lamellae. The lamellae are joined together as a bunch, and it forms into which one? Trabecula. See here, this one, like this, all these are the lamellae are there. All these lamellae join to form one trabeculae. You're following? And between the trabeculae, many trabeculae are there. Between the trabeculae, some gaps are there. Can you see the gaps? These are the gaps now. The gaps contains a which one? Red bone marrow. It contains a red bone marrow. This one is the red bone marrow. I'm drawing here with the red. So this one is called as the red bone marrow. Red bone marrow is a hemopoietic tissue. Hemopoietic tissue. What is a hemopoietic tissue? Which forms the blood? Blood cells. That is called as hemopoiesis. The process of formation of the blood cells. The process of formation of the blood cells is called as hemopoiesis. Hemopoiesis is done by the hemopoietic tissue, which is nothing but here red bone marrow. Clear, students? Now, where is this red bone marrow? In which bones is red bone marrow here will present? For example, you take bones of the ribs, vertebrae, skull bones, are the examples where the red bone marrow is present. One is the ribs. 12 pairs of ribs are there in the human beings. Vertebrae, in the vertebrae also contains the red bone marrow. The skull bones also contains the red bone marrow. And this red bone marrow here, this one, where is this red bone marrow present? Here lamellae are there. Many lamellae, they form which one? The trabeculae. This one is a trabecula, the trabecula like this. Between the trabeculae, some gaps are there. The gaps are filled with the red bone marrow. The red bone marrow is a hemopoietic tissue. What is a hemopoietic tissue? Which goes for the hemopoiesis. What is the hemopoiesis? The formation, the process of formation of the blood cells is called as the hemopoiesis. RBCA, platelet, etc. are formed here. The stems, because it contains the stem cells of the blood. Okay, so these stem cells of the blood cells are present in the red bone marrow. That's why it's called as the hemopoietic tissue. Goes for the hemopoiesis here. Okay, students. That's all for this lecture, my dear students. Hope you enjoyed my session. We'll be coming up with the next topic called as here Haversian system in the next lecture. Hope you enjoyed my session. Bye, students, all of you.